For today's Grimm adventure, we find ourselves once again in one of my favorite cemeteries in the United States, Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And it's pretty much in our own backyard. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the death of actor Rudolph Valentino, whose final resting place is here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I'm going to take you inside the mausoleum. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about why he's there and why he shouldn't be there. And then we're going to take a 2-hour road trip almost to the desert to visit the final resting place of the Lady in Black.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is that it stays. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
It's here inside the Hollywood Memorial Park Cathedral Mausoleum where you'll find the final resting place. Well, it was supposed to be the temporary final resting place of Rudolph Valentino. Rudy, the Latin lover, whatever you want to call him. Valentino's final resting place is at the back of the mausoleum. So we're going to go ahead and walk back there in one long shot. And in doing so, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what happened to Rudolph Valentino. He died at the age of 31 on August 23rd, 1926 in a hospital in New York City. He actually collapsed at the Ambassador Hotel, and people really had no idea what was wrong with him. First, they thought it was ulcers. Then they thought it was appendicitis. And they ended up calling it the Valentino syndrome, whenever you have ulcers, but it looks like it's appendicitis, but it's not. A little confusing. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, when it came down to the complications from surgery, he died from sepsis. I think that's correct. His funeral was held in New York City. About 100,000 people showed up for the funeral. And it was a big deal. His body was taken from New York City to California by train. It got here. There's a video of his body arriving, the train arriving, because it was a pretty big deal. He was a big movie star. His second funeral was held over in Beverly Hills. And then here's the crazy thing. Very well-known actor, loved by everybody, but he had no funeral arrangements set up. So whenever he died, his friend, a woman by the name of June Mathis, who actually bought a plot for her and her husband, who now they're divorced, said, listen, Rudy's a good friend of mine. Put his body here. And the intention was to keep his body in the crypt as a temporary place. There was supposed to be this big mausoleum built for him, and it never happened. So technically, Rudolph Valentino's final resting place to this day is still in the temporary holding crypt that's now his. Again, I do want to point out that Rudolph Valentino's final resting place was supposed to be temporary. About a year after his death, his best friend, June Mathis Balboni, she's right there to the left, she passed away, and then she was put here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery as well. And to this day, he stayed. I wonder how many people come here to visit him and don't even realize that this is not where he was supposed to be, that he actually took the crypt of somebody else. To be honest, June Mathis's ex-husband. Such a simple little spot in the corner of the mausoleum with a little plaque there. But this is it. Valentino, 1895 to 1926. Talk about old school Hollywood, right? Now, people come up here every single day. There's fresh flowers. Let's see. I see your face in every flower, your eyes and stars above. It's just the thought of you. Now, I didn't realize this, but these two flowers are here. If you read this, it says, Remembering Rudolph Valentino, May 6, 2022. The 127th anniversary of his birth. And there's a bunch of other little cards and poems and sayings. I was here once when a bunch of people came out here. I think it was the anniversary of his death last year. And they were just, this whole mausoleum was just filled with flowers. It's beautiful. To this day, countless people from all over the world come and pay their respects to so many people here at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, especially Rudolph Valentino. But there's one mourner that is probably more popular, more legendary, more ghostly, if you will. And that is the Lady in Black. Now, the story goes, every year since the year that he died, a woman dressed in black with a black veil and a single red rose would come here to Hollywood Forever Cemetery, walk the same exact path we did through the mausoleum, and place it at Rudy's grave. And then eventually, she passed. Now, there's been people that have been here that have come, other ladies in black, and to this day in 2022, at the anniversary of his death, you'll find a whole bunch of people coming here dressed in black. But after the original woman's death, it is believed that she actually haunts this mausoleum. We now find ourselves in San Jacinto, California. To be more specific, the San Jacinto Valley Cemetery. This is where you'll find the final resting place of the Lady in Black, the woman who visited Rudolph Valentino's grave every year on the anniversary of his death for close to 30 years. Now, of course, one can argue that the exact identity, the true identity of the Lady in Black has never been known. But there's one person, one woman, a woman by the name of Dietra Flemay. That was her stage name. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But Dietra Flemay is the one who everybody believes is the Lady in Black. And there's a whole bunch of, there's a story that surrounds her life, her connection to Rudolph Valentino, that make it believable. It is a very sunny day here in the desert. The sun mixed with the shadows from the tree branches slightly moving across her grave. I think it's a perfect fit. In loving memory, Princess O. Wilson, and it even says Lady in Black, 1905 to 1984. You see that single rose just to the left of the word lady? This is pretty wild. If you know the story of Rudolph Valentino and his early death and the mystery of who was the Lady in Black, that's probably all you know. To be fair, that's all I knew until I started doing research on who this lady was. Now, like I said, Dietra Flemay was her stage name. That's how Hollywood knew her. She was a vaudevillian dancer and a violinist. Her real name, her supposed real name, was Princess Orvella Wilson. It wasn't her real name. It's the name that everybody knows, again, that's on her tombstone as well as her death certificate. But how did she become the Lady in Black? Why do people believe that she was the Lady in Black? Well, she actually said so herself. It turns out when she was 14 years old, she was in the hospital and she was very sick. And a family friend, Rudolph Valentino, came to visit her, and he brought her a single red rose and he sat with her at her bedside. And he reassured her that she was not going to die, that she was going to live many, many, many years. He did say, according to her in interviews, at some point he will die. And he made her promise that she would come and visit his grave because he didn't want to be alone. And he made her promise that when that happens, that she too would bring a red rose to his grave. And she did for close to 30 years until the media took hold and a whole bunch of other ladies in black showed up. And then she would watch from afar, and then eventually she passed. And this is where she's laid to rest. Even though Dietrich Flammé is listed as the Lady in Black, she wasn't the first person to wear black at Rudolph Valentino's funeral. She actually accredited the first woman to wear black at his funeral to Pola Negri, who was a very stunning actress. Raven black hair and pale as the freaking snow. I'm talking like, think Snow White. Now the funny thing about her is she is most known for completely breaking down and going into crying hysterics and falling all over herself at Rudolph Valentino's grave. It kind of became kind of comical. Also, when it came time to put flowers around his casket at his funeral, supposedly the funeral home got a phone call saying that they wanted this enormous white rose blanket made out of roses draped over Rudolph Valentino's casket. And right in the middle of the blanket would be her name, Pola, P-O-L-A, written out in red roses. And luckily, the funeral director, the funeral home said, it's not gonna happen. A lot of people thought that it was her trying to use Rudolph Valentino's death as publicity, I guess you should say. So she was technically the first person to wear black at Valentino's grave. And then Dietrich Flammé, and then countless other people. In fact, I think she visited his grave every day. Well, not every day, every anniversary from the time that he died till 1954, whenever the public started becoming too much for her. She kind of started retreating into herself. So she would still visit his grave, but at like a day before, 2 days after, never on the same day because of media attention. That was up until 1954, and then she stopped altogether because it was just too much. She appeared again in 1977, herself, Dietrich Flammé, and then she disappeared again, I think until like 81, up until she died in 84. I think it was 81 when she came out, and that was the last time anybody's ever seen her. It's still a tradition. You can go to Hollywood Forever Cemetery every year, and they have people, all these women dressed in black, coming to pay their respects. Maybe this year, this September, we'll go and try to show it on camera. I know I say this all the time, but I say it because it's true. Again, this is a grave, a final resting place, a story, a person that I never thought that I'd ever get to see in my life. And yet I'm standing here paying my respects. With that being said, let's end this video with a moment of silence for Princess Orvella Wilson, Dietrich Flammé, the Lady in Black.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always